Stars. You're listening to inspiring life stories where calm voices meet powerful lessons. Close your eyes, relax your mind, and drift into stories that heal your heart. If this story touched your heart, don't just scroll, subscribe, share, and let someone else feel inspired too. Because one story can change a life, maybe even yours. A gentle Halloween sleep story, The Autumn Fog. The village of Hollowmere rests at the edge of a deep, whispering forest. In autumn, the fog rolls down from the hills like a soft white river, wrapping the cottages and cobblestone streets in quiet mystery. On evenings like this, when the air smells of smoke and damp leaves, the lanterns of Hollowmere glow brighter than ever, each one handmade by the old lantern maker who lives by the mill. His name is Eldrick. His hands are calloused, his eyes gentle, and his hair has turned the color of ash and candle wax. He has been crafting lanterns for as long as anyone in Hollowmere can remember. Some say he knows a secret, that his lanterns don't just shine with light, but with memory. Tonight, as the first winds of October whisper through the bare branches, Eldrick begins his evening work. His workshop is small, warm, and cluttered with tools, brass frames, bits of colored glass, melted wax, and jars of oil. The air hums softly with the rhythm of his movements. The window fogs with his breath as he leans close to polish a new lantern's glass outside. Children laugh faintly in the fog, carrying tiny pumpkins carved with smiling faces. Their giggles drift through the mist, echoing softly against the stone walls. Eldrick smiles. Halloween is near, the night when Hollowmere fills with candlelight, and every doorstep flickers like a constellation. He lifts the lantern he has been working on, a delicate one with panes of amber and violet glass etched with curling vines and stars. It catches the firelight beautifully, but this one is special. Inside its base, Eldrick has hidden a small charm, a pressed autumn leaf sealed between two thin sheets of glass. It once belonged to his late wife, Mira, who loved the sound of wind through the trees. Eldrick lights the lantern carefully. The wick flares and the glow spreads through the colored glass, painting the workshop walls with shades of gold and purple. The room fills with a warmth that feels alive, as if the lantern itself breathes softly. He sets it by the window, and its light spills into the fog like a beacon. For a while, Eldrick just sits there, listening. The wind moans gently in the chimney. The crackle of the small fire sounds like distant footsteps. He feels the rhythm of the village slowing, softening into night, one by one. The other windows across Hollowmere begin to glow, small lights in the fog, keeping the darkness at bay. He remembers how, long ago, the villagers used to say that on Halloween night, the fog wasn't just weather. They believed it carried whispers, the gentle voices of ancestors returning home for a single night, guided by the glow of lanterns. Light the way for them, Mira used to say, so they don't lose their way back. That thought brings him peace. He takes another lantern from the shelf, one with blue glass and a brass handle shaped like a vine. He polishes it, humming softly, the tune low and slow. The lantern's reflection shimmers in his eyes as the night deepens. The fog thickens until even the nearest trees fade into white. The world becomes small, just the workshop, the fire, and the steady glow of lanterns. Eldrick's cat, a sleepy gray creature named Bristle, curls up beside the hearth, purring softly. He continues his work in silence, trimming wicks, checking oil levels, arranging his lanterns in neat rows. Each one seems to have its own personality. Some glow bright and eager, others dim and thoughtful. Together, they make the workshop look like a hall of stars, every so often. Eldrick looks out the window. The street outside is empty now, but the fog seems to move with purpose, swirling like slow breath. The lantern light from the houses wavers, soft and golden, making the mist shimmer like a dream. He feels no fear, only a quiet comfort. The world is vast and mysterious, but tonight it feels close and gentle. The spirits of the past, if they truly walk the fog, must be at peace too. Eldrick yawns and sets down his polishing cloth. The last lantern of the evening is finished, a small one with plain glass, simple and humble, but its glow is warm and steady. He lights it and carries it to his bedside. As he lies down, Bristle hops up beside him, curling at his feet. Room glows softly with lantern light, and outside the fog drifts like silk. Eldrick watches the gentle flame flicker once, twice, then steady itself. He whispers, "Good night, Mira," and closes his eyes. The fog outside thickens a little more, wrapping the cottage in silence. For those who pass by, they say that the old lantern maker's window glowed long after he fell asleep, a single golden light shining in the mist, as if the night itself was watching over him. The whispering lanterns the morning after the fog felt unusually still. Hallamir woke slowly, as if the whole village had dreamt the same quiet dream. The leaves that clung to the cobbled streets glistened with dew, and the faint smell of candle wax lingered in the air, a sign of how many lanterns had burned through the night. Eldrick, the lantern maker, rose early. The soft creak of the wooden floor greeted his steps as he moved about his workshop, his breath misting in the cool morning air. Outside, a thin sunlight filtered through the fog, turning the village gold and gray at once. On his workbench sat the lanterns he had crafted the night before, each one still faintly warm from the fire. He smiled to himself as he polished their handles, making small circles with his cloth. The memory of last night drifted through his mind, the fog, the glowing windows, the peace that settled like a blanket over Hallamir. He glanced toward the window, the lantern he'd left by it. Mira's lantern, the one with the pressed autumn leaf, still burned, though faintly. Its flame was steady, small, and alive even though dawn had come. Eldrick tilted his head, curious. Lantern flames were never meant to last that long. He walked closer. The flame inside the glass flickered softly, but as he leaned in, it gave a faint sound, a hum so delicate it could almost be mistaken for wind. It rose, then ever so faintly, the sound came again, like a sigh or a whisper. Eldrick blinked, his old heart slowing. "It's just a draft," he muttered under his breath. But the room had no breeze. The air was still. The lantern hummed again, this time with a tone that felt almost familiar. It was not frightening, but gentle, like someone breathing his name in the softest voice imaginable. Eldrick. His hands trembled slightly. He placed them on the table to steady himself. "Mira," he whispered before realizing how foolish it must sound to speak to a lamp. And yet, the glow shifted. The light swelled just a little, brightening as if in answer. Then it settled again, calm, golden, and warm. Eldrick stood there for a long time, just watching it. There was no fear in him, only wonder, and an ache in his chest that was both tender and bittersweet. He touched the glass gently. "If it's you," he murmured, "then thank you for keeping me company." The lantern's flame flickered once, like a blink. For the rest of the morning, the village bustled as usual. Children ran by his shop, laughing and chasing leaves. The baker's bell clanged faintly. Someone hammered wood down the lane. Eldrick worked quietly through it all, trimming wicks and cutting panes of colored glass, yet his mind kept wandering back to that whisper, that feeling of being seen by the light. As dusk approached, villagers began visiting his workshop to collect their lanterns for the coming nights. Halloween was only a few days away, and everyone in Hallamir wanted a fresh one. Eldrick handed them out with smiles and quiet words, but each time he passed a lantern into someone's hands, he felt as though they carried away a small part of the mystery too. One little girl, her hair dyed with an orange ribbon, lingered longer than the others. She looked up at Eldrick shyly. "Mr. Lantern Maker," she said, "Mama says your lanterns sing." Eldrick paused, surprised. "Sing, do they?" he said, his eyes softening. The girl nodded eagerly. She said when she was little, she heard one whisper in her room, and it said good night. Eldrick smiled faintly, a warmth rising in his chest. "Then perhaps your mother's lantern liked her very much." The child grinned, clutching her new pumpkin-shaped lantern to her chest. "Do you think mine will talk to only if you listen very closely?" Eldrick said, his voice low and kind. At night, when the last customer left and the door shut softly behind her, Eldrick turned back to Mira's lantern. It still glowed faintly in the corner, as though the flame had been waiting for him. He carried it to the center of the room and set it on the floor beside him. He spoke to it softly, telling it about the little girl, about the weather, about how the leaves were turning crimson near the mill bend. His words filled the workshop like a quiet song. The lantern flickered gently as he spoke, not brighter, not louder, but in rhythm with his voice, like it was listening. As the night deepened, Eldrick grew tired. He leaned back in his chair, the soft creak of wood blending with the faint hum of the lantern's flame. His eyes grew heavy. Outside, the fog began to drift down from the hills again, curling around Hallamir in slow, ghostly waves. And then, just before he fell asleep, he heard it again, a whisper, soft as silk. "Good night, Eldrick." His breath caught. The sound was faint, fragile, and kind. He smiled, the same smile he used to wear when Mira whispered to him on autumn nights like this. His head nodded, his eyes closed, and he drifted to sleep beneath the glow of the whispering lanterns outside. The fog thickened until the workshop was barely visible, but through the mist, the golden light of Eldrick's lantern shone steady and warm, like a heartbeat in the quiet dark. promised that in Hallowmere, love and memory still found their way home through the light. The visitor in the fog night came early that evening. By the time the church bell tolled 6, a thick fog had already settled over Halloween, whipping around chimneys and curling down empty lanes. The moon was only a pale blur above the clouds, and the air smelled faintly of wet leaves and wax. Inside his workshop, Eldrick the lantern maker was busy trimming wicks and fitting new panes of glass into brass frames. The glow from his little hearth flickered across the walls, and Mira's lantern, the one that whispered, stood quietly on the shelf beside him, its golden flame steady as a heartbeat. Eldrick hummed an old tune as he worked, something Mira used to sing when the nights grew long. He didn't notice at first when the fog outside pressed close against his window, turning the glass to white. He didn't even hear the faint creak of the gate, but then there came a sound that froze him mid-breath, a soft, deliberate knock at the door. 3 times, slow and measured. Eldrick frowned, setting down his tools. Few visitors came this late. The villagers knew his habits. After sundown, the lantern maker kept to his shop, and his lanterns kept to their light. Still, politeness won over hesitation. He wiped his hands on his apron and went to the door. When he opened it, the fog rolled in light breath, and a figure stood just beyond the threshold, tall, cloaked, and carrying something long and thin in one hand. "Good evening," the stranger said, his voice low and oddly melodic. "Forgive the hour." Eldrick peered closer. The man's cloak was dark gray, trimmed with silver thread that caught the lantern light. His face was half hidden beneath the hood, but his eyes gleamed with a soft golden hue, reflecting the flames from the workshop. "Evening," Eldrick said carefully. "Can I help you?" "Traveler." The man stepped inside slowly, bowing his head. "I heard of your craft," he said. "They say your lanterns hold warmth long after their flames go out." I wondered if that were true. Eldrick smiled faintly. "Lanterns are made to hold light," he said. "The warmth is only what people put into them." The man's gaze flicked toward the shelf, toward Mira's lantern. "And yet some lights seem alive," he murmured. Eldrick hesitated. "Some do," he said softly. The stranger walked closer to the glowing lantern, his steps silent on the floorboards. The fog that had followed him seemed to pause at the door as though unwilling to enter. He studied the lantern with reverence, his gloved hand hovering just above the glass. "This one hums," he said. Eldrick felt a chill at the back of his neck. "You can hear it." The man nodded slowly. "The whisper of old love," he said. "It's rare. Lanterns like this are not born of tools, but of hearts." Eldrick swallowed, unsure what to say. The man turned back to him, eyes soft now, almost kind. "Once long ago," the stranger continued, "there was a lantern maker who lived by the sea. He poured his love into his craft, and his wife's spirit guided him through his work. His lanterns became beacons for lost sailors, for lonely souls, for those who wandered the fog." Eldrick's breath caught. "That sounds familiar," he said. "As it should," the man replied gently. "Every lantern that shines with love carries a story. They find one another, you see, across villages, across time." For a moment, the workshop felt impossibly still. The only sound was the faint hum of Mira's lantern. Then the stranger reached into his cloak and pulled out something long and wrapped in cloth. He unwrapped it carefully, revealing a weathered lantern frame, bent and broken at one side. Its glass was cracked, and its wick had long since turned to ash. Yet as Eldrick looked at it, he felt something stir deep in his chest, a pulse of memory. "Could you mend it?" the traveler asked softly. "It belonged to someone who loved light as much as you do." Eldrick nodded slowly, his hands trembling. "Yes," he said. "I can try." He set the broken lantern on his bench and began his work. The stranger watched quietly, his presence calm and patient. As Eldrick fitted new glass into the frame, the fog outside pressed closer to the windows, swirling and sighing like distant voices. The fire crackled. The clock ticked softly. When the final pane was in place, Eldrick reached for a match and lit the wick. The lantern flared weakly at first, then steadied into a soft, silver light. It wasn't gold like Mira's. It was cooler, quieter, like moonlight on water. The traveler bowed his head. "You brought it back," he said. Eldrick smiled faintly. "Every light deserves another chance." The stranger took the lantern gently into his hands. For a heartbeat, the silver glow brightened, and Eldrick could have sworn he saw the faint silhouettes, reflected in the glass, hand in hand, walking through fog. The man met Eldrick's eyes once more. "You've done a kindness tonight," he said, "and come Halloween's Eve, that kindness will return to you." Then he turned and stepped back into the fog. Within moments, his shape dissolved, leaving only the echo of soft footsteps and a single floating light, the lantern he carried. Drifting slowly into the mist, Eldrick stood at the doorway long after the man was gone. The fog glowed faintly silver where the lantern vanished, then dimmed. He looked down at Mira's lantern beside him, still golden, still warm, and for the first time in years, he whispered, "Maybe we're not so alone after all." The lantern flickered in answer, its hum deep and gentle like the purr of a sleeping soul. Outside, the fog rolled across Halloween once more, carrying with it a promise of light returning where it is most needed, even in the deepest dark. The night of the Lost Souls Halloween Eve arrived quietly in Halloween. The fog that had drifted through the village all week thickened, until the rooftops looked like islands, floating in a silver sea. The moon rose pale and round, its light breaking through the mist in soft trembling bands. Lanterns burned in every window, orange, gold, and faint blue, their glow reflecting on puddles like fallen stars. Eldrick, the old lantern maker, stood by his door, watching the lights flicker along the lane. Children ran past in costumes made of scraps and ribbons, their laughter mingling with the low toll of the church bell. It was a peaceful sound, not frightening, but solemn, as if the whole village breathed in rhythm with the fog. Inside his shop, his workbench was crowded with lanterns, each one special. Some held carvings of moons and owls, others of vines and sleeping faces, but one lantern sat, apart from the rest, Mira's lantern. Its flame was steady and warm, humming softly as if whispering a song from another world. Eldrick felt the hum vibrate through the wooden floorboards. He smiled. "You're restless tonight," he said softly. Just like her, he trimmed the wick and set it gently on the windowsill. Outside, the fog shifted slightly, almost like it was listening. Then came the knock, soft, careful, and familiar. Eldrick's heart gave a small jump. When he opened the door, the fog parted, and there stood the same traveler from the night before, tall, cloaked in gray, the silver-threaded fabric glinting faintly under the lantern light. But this time, he wasn't alone. Behind him, faint shapes stood in the mist. Men, women, children, all with gentle, glowing outlines like starlight wrapped in human form. Their faces were calm, eyes filled with quiet gratitude. Eldrick froze. "Who are they?" he whispered. The traveler smiled faintly. "The lost souls," he said, "every Halloween. They walked through Hollowmere, those who never found their way home. But tonight, they followed your light, my light." The man nodded toward Mira's lantern. "It calls to them. Warmth, love, and memory. You've given them a way to remember who they once were." Eldrick felt his throat tighten. He looked at the spirits again. They did not seem sad or trapped, but peaceful, like travelers nearing their destination. The faint fog swirled around them, carrying whispers that almost sounded like laughter and lullabies. Traveler stepped forward and held out the silver lantern Eldrick had repaired the night before. It glowed brighter now, almost alive. "We walk tonight," he said. "Will you guide us?" Eldrick hesitated. "I'm only a lantern maker," he murmured. The man smiled gently. "That's all the world ever needed." So Eldrick took Mira's lantern from the windowsill, its golden light pulsing softly in his hands. Together, he and the traveler stepped into the fog, leading the procession through the sleeping village. The air was cool and silent except for the soft whisper of the lantern flames. As they passed each house, the spirit's light reflected in the windows, and the villagers stirred in their sleep, smiling faintly, as if dreaming of something beautiful and forgotten. At the edge of the village stood the old bridge, the one that led into the Hollowmere woods. There, the fog gathered thickest, curling like breath from unseen mouths. The spirits paused, their outlines shimmering in the pale glow. "This is where they crossed," the traveler said, "between what was and what will be." Eldrick held the lantern high, the golden light spread outward, breaking the mist into threads. One by one, the souls began to move forward. Some looked back and nodded to him, gentle bows, soft smiles. Others whispered words he couldn't hear but felt deep inside his chest. Among them, he saw faces that made his breath catch, old friends, customers long gone. Even the baker's father who taught him to carve handles, and near the end of the line, he saw her, Mira. She stood in the mist glow, her face exactly as he remembered, kind eyes, wine-tangled hair. The same smile that had carried him through lonely years. She didn't speak, only stepped close enough that he could feel her warmth. Not cold like the others, but alive, radiant. "You've done well," she whispered. Eldrick's eyes filled with tears. "I never stopped missing you," he said. "I know," she replied, "and I never stopped listening." She touched his hand, or perhaps the light did, and for a moment, his lantern flared so bright it bathed the whole bridge in gold. Then she turned, walking toward the trees, where the fog opened like a doorway of light. The other spirits followed, their forms fading, softly like candle smoke rising into the dawn. The traveler lingered last. He turned to Eldrick, his golden eyes shining brighter than before. "When the morning comes, keep one lantern burning," he said, "so the lost may always find their way home." Eldrick nodded. "I will." The man bowed deeply, then stepped into the mist. The silver glow vanished when the last light faded. Hollowmere was quiet again. The fog began to lift, revealing the soft blush of dawn on the horizon. Eldrick stood on the bridge for a long time, holding Mira's lantern close to his heart. Its flame was steady, small, but eternal. As he walked back to the village, he noticed the fog thinning from the doorways and chimneys, leaving behind a faint shimmer in the air, as if Hollowmere itself had been blessed by the touch of light. That night, for the first time in many years, Eldrick didn't dream of loss. He dreamt of home, not the one he lived in, but the one that waited beyond the mist, where lanterns never went out and voices whispered softly in the dark. The eternal light morning came to Halloween like a slow breath. The fog that had haunted the village for a week had lifted, leaving behind dew-silvered grass and clear skies painted soft pink. By the rising sun, the air smelled faintly of wax, smoke, and something else, something new. Peace. Eldrick woke before the bells, his heart oddly light. He sat up in bed and listened. No whispers, no footsteps, no rustle of fog against his window. Just the quiet hum of the world returning to itself. Mira's lantern stood on the table beside him, its golden light dim but steady, still burning even after the long night. He smiled, touching the glass gently. "You made sure they all found their way, didn't you?" he whispered. The flame flickered as though answering yes. He rose and went to the workshop. The sunlight spilled across the floorboards, catching the hundreds of lanterns lined up along the walls. Some were finished, others still waited for glass or paint. Yet all of them, even unlit, seemed to hold a faint shimmer, a trace of the light that had passed through them the night before. Eldrick took a slow breath. For the first time in years, his heart didn't ache. It felt full of warmth, memory, and something larger than himself. As the day went on, the villagers began to arrive one by one. They brought him bread, honey, and thanks. "Mr. Eldrick," said the baker's wife, "our boy said he saw lights dancing in the sky last night, said they looked like people waving goodbye." "My little one," said another, woke up smiling and said Grandma visited her in a dream. She said it felt real. Eldrick listened to them all, his smile small but knowing. "Maybe," he said softly, "the lanterns helped them find their way back for a moment." That evening, when the sun dipped low again, Eldrick sat outside his shop, polishing Mira's lantern. The world was still. A single autumn leaf drifted down from the oak tree beside his door, landing on the lantern. As glass, the same kind of leaf he had pressed there years ago. He thought of Mira's touch on the bridge, the traveler's words, the glow of souls fading into peace. And he realized something quietly beautiful. Perhaps the light wasn't only meant for the dead. Perhaps it was for the living too, a reminder that no one's truly alone, even in the deepest dark. As twilight settled, the doorbell chimed softly. Eldrick turned. Standing there was a young woman he hadn't seen before, no older than 20, with some dark hair tied back and hands rough from work. She held a small, broken lantern to her chest. "Are you the lantern maker?" she asked shyly. "I am," Eldrick said, smiling. "What brings you here so late, child?" She stepped forward, placing the broken lantern on his table. "It was my grandmother's," she said. "It stopped lighting years ago. Mama said you could fix anything that remembers love." Eldrick's hands trembled slightly as he touched the lantern. Its metal was cold, but deep within he sensed something faint, a sleeping glow waiting to wake. He smiled gently. "Love never truly breaks," he said. "It just waits to be found." He worked through the evening, the young woman watching silently. When he struck the match and lit the wick, the lantern came alive with a gentle gold light, not as bright as Mira's, but soft and kind. The woman gasped, her eyes filling with tears. "It's her light," she whispered. "I remember it." Eldrick nodded, feeling warmth spread through him. "Then she's still near," he said. "Every light you carry keeps her close." She hugged him, a brief, grateful embrace, and left into the twilight, her lantern glowing faintly against the dark. When the door closed, Eldrick turned back to Mira's lantern. its flame danced higher than before. As if proud, "See," he murmured, "your light keeps spreading." He took it to the window and set it there where it had always belonged, outside. Hollow mirror streets shimmered softly, lanterns in every window, just as before. But now their glow seemed gentler, warmer. Fog would come again one day, he knew, it always did, but now it would no longer bring fear. He sat by the window, the golden light washing over him. For the first time in many, many years, he felt no weight of time at all. His eyelids grew heavy, his hands folded loosely in his lap. And as he drifted toward sleep, he heard a voice, soft, clear, and familiar, whisper from the flame. "Rest, my love. You've lit the way." Eldrick smiled. Always mirror, the flame brightened once, filling the room with golden light. Then it settled into a steady, eternal glow that never went out again. When the villagers passed by in the days that followed, they found the old lantern maker asleep in his chair, peaceful and still, with a small smile on his face. They kept his shop just as he left it. Every year on Halloween Eve, they lit his lanterns in the windows of Halloween, and they said, if you stood on the bridge at midnight and listened carefully, you could hear the faint hum of two voices whispering together in the mist, not haunting, just home.